What's up, comic and pop culture fans? This is James with Minhunter Comics, and it looks like this is going to be the last video of the year. So I thought we'd give out the Minhunter Comic Awards for the best comics of 2022. It's a really good year, specifically for Image Comics, as you're about to see in this list here. I looked at a couple lists that other people did, and I saw Saga was #1 on a lot of people's lists. Unfortunately, I haven't read Saga in years, and I haven't continued with it, so I just got to get around to that. Apparently, it was also a really bad time to get out of Detective Comics because everyone's saying Detective Comics is like the best it's ever been right now. Same thing with Immortal X-Men and Flash. So, some of them I just haven't read, so not everything's going to be on this list, but here's the ones that impressed me. In no particular order, we have Step by Bloody Step. This is a required reading. This is one of those oddball ones and one of the most palatable ones on here because I think it was only 4 issues. So you can totally dive into it at any time, real easy. Admired mainly for its art. This is an awesome one and it shows that Image is king this year. Next up is Batman the Knight by Chip Zdarsky, and it follows Batman in one of my favorite eras, which is that kind of like basically pre-Batman time. That is still a largely unexplored part of the Batman mythos, so it was nice to get a really good writer on that particular area, and I think there were 10 or 12 issues for that. Definitely worth it. One of the best Batman stories, I think, in quite some time. Nice House on the Lake. This is pretty much on everybody's list, so if you haven't heard it from me, hear it from everybody. That's one of the ones you got to pick up. I think there's 12 issues total, and it is, I think they're all out now. I haven't finished reading it. I'm up to like 8, but it's really good. More DC. I think that might be Black Label. Check it out. Clementine, Book 1. If anyone loved Walking Dead, and for whatever reason you missed the Telltale games with Clementine as the main character, first of all, you should probably do that because those games are fantastic. Arguably even better than the Walking Dead TV show. Well, this is the Clementine adaptation from that. Not even adaptation, but stories continued, so definitely worth it. Monkey Prince. This was a weird one. I grabbed this kind of randomly this year. Didn't really think too much about it. I came into it late. My local comic book shop had them all, and I just grabbed the whole miniseries, and wow. Ended up being pretty darn great. I love when DC goes in oddball directions like that, and it really worked. I am so happy to say this next one. Action Comics, you heard me right. Superman coming back. This was a really good year for Action Comics. I think it's the best Action Comics has been for years. You're going to want to check out the War World Saga. It has everything you need in a Superman story and a lot more. It's one of my favorite eras of Superman, and I think a lot of people missed it. Ronin and the Endless Sea of Stars. A lot of you might have missed this one, but this is the one that's going to probably make you cry. And you should always be in tune with yourself. What does this make me feel? And this is one that really will make you feel. So for the emotional impact alone, I have to put that on the list. Next up, Little Monsters. And I'm kind of bummed out that not enough people are talking about this one. Jeff Lemire book, his latest thing that he's worked up. And it is a little slow moving, I think. It seems like all the comics are extra short, but I've been loving it. Each one comes out, I pick it up. I love the style. I love the slow burn premise. I think it was really great, and I'm loving these little vampire toddlers. Up next is the most surprising entry on this list, and it's Poison Ivy. I picked this up because why not? It's a Batman villain. First issue, ended up loving it. Came back the next week, got 2, got 3, got 4. And it ended up being on my top list of the year. So that was a complete surprise. Poison Ivy is not even in my top 10 favorite Batman villains. However, maybe she is now. Axe Judgment Day. And I think that is our first Marvel entry on the list. And unfortunately, there's not too much Marvel on here. But this is one of the better Marvel events I've read in quite some time. Although I did like Devil's Reign. But yeah, Judgment Day was really good. You should totally check it out if you haven't. It's worth the time. Next is Bowlero, another one that I think a lot of people just missed. I think a lot of people didn't hear what it was, and it's really cool. It's like this weird relationship-based fever dream. It kind of reminds me in some spots of Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind, which I'm obsessed with that movie, so I really liked Bowlero. Next up is Human Target by Tom King. I love when Tom King kind of pairs up with very noir-style artwork. It always seems to be like a match made in heaven, and this totally worked. You can pick up that first volume, maybe even volume 2 from Amazon, and you'll be glad that you did. Batman/Superman, World's Finest. World's Finest came back this year with a bang. This book was just fun. It was a good old-fashioned, like, comic book fun. I had a blast reading this, and it was always one of the ones I was most excited about picking up at the end of the week. 8 Billion Genies. What started as just a really cool premise actually ended up being really actually cool and really great. So I definitely recommend that. That is one you probably have heard. That book did get pretty popular, and it might get optioned for a series. Maybe. Who cares if it does or it doesn't? It's worth it. Next up is a really short one, Ghost Cage. This was another one of those oddball, almost manga-style type of books where I was reading it and I was like, what is going on? Like the multiple levels of the factory. It's got like a Dante's Inferno thing going on. It's weird. It's awesome. It's memorable. Check it out. And next up is Swamp Thing, and yes, there's a lot of 2021 in this, but it did end in 2022. If you don't know, anytime Swamp Thing is written, it's fantastic. That's not changing anytime soon. This was a fantastic run. Ram V did an amazing job with this, and you're going to want to check it out. Also, don't forget that name Ram V. You'll see him in a couple of these other entries. Next up is Monkey Meat. This is Image, not to be confused with Monkey Prince. So there's 2 Monkey entries on this list. This one actually might be, I don't want to say better or worse because they're not similar even remotely. This is another one that's very palatable because it's so short. You can pick up, I think there's only 4 issues, and it's totally worth your time. Next is Catwoman Lonely City. And I don't think I've enjoyed a Catwoman comic book that actually would make any sort of top 25 in years. This was a Black Label. It might actually be the best Black Label DC book that came out this year. This is serious. I don't know if a lot of people read it. I mean, a lot of my friends are Marvel anyway, so we don't really talk about it, but even with DC fans, I don't really hear this book being talked about, and that's wrong. Gotta pick it up. Next is Sabertooth. It's pretty crazy. There's not many Marvel entries on the list for 2022 for me, and one of them is Sabertooth. But hey, if it's good writing, it's good writing, and Sabertooth brought it, man. Real short run, real palatable. There's some nice twists in there, and I love when you get kind of a more oddball, maybe even underrated character get his own title, and it ends up being great. This is totally one of those situations. Aquaman Andromeda is another one I think that some people might have missed. And that was a mistake, because this is horror done well. If you ever wanted a horror-style Aquaman book, you might want to pick this one up. Really pays well to great horror tropes and homages, and the artwork is next level. They really brought it for this one. Fantastic Four, Full Circle. If you like Alex Ross, if you like Jack Kirby, you have to check it out. Even more, the art for the story. It's Alex Ross, but it's also inked differently to almost kind of look Kirby-esque. This is an artistic masterpiece, and you're going to want to have it in your collection just to gawk at. Nightwing. Wasn't sure that this was going to continue because this was a 2021 favorite for me, but I can say that it stayed strong, and it kept me all through the year. So good on you, Nightwing, for having 2 years in a row now of being some of the best comics on the market. Silver Coin, I've liked this for a little while, and it has different artists popping in and different writers popping in. You got Ram V, you got Chip Zdarsky, you got tons of people working on this. If you haven't read it, I'm pretty sure it ended with issue 16, so it is, I believe, done. You can totally pick it up. It's super awesome. I can't spoil too much for you because of the premise, but it's really cool. Check it out. Devil's Reign. I really dug this arc. I actually really liked the tie-ins too. Usually when you get a main event, I usually like the event and I don't care so much about the tie-ins, but I loved pretty much everything about Devil's Reign. I thought it was a total win, and I am glad I picked up those books, even if I did come into them pretty late. Who cares? Late, early, on time, it doesn't matter. Comic books are here forever. Oh, the Amazing Spider-Man run, the current volume of Amazing Spider-Man. I've totally been really digging. It's been really great. I like Tombstone a lot, though, so it makes sense. It literally panders to my needs. Give me Tombstone, and I got him. So, Spider-Man, I'm glad to see that it's going well. I think I like it a little bit better than the last volume so far, so that's a good start. And I'm going to end the list before we talk about my favorite writers and artists with Flashpoint Beyond, although admittedly for this one, it really helps to have read Flashpoint. This is one of those ones that might not make the most sense to pick up and read, but read Flashpoint. If you haven't already, pick it up or go to YouTube and have a comic historian tell you the whole story, and then read Flashpoint Beyond. A really good year, specifically for Image, specifically for DC. Marvel, I'd like to see a little bit more in the new year. I'm sure other people's lists look very different than mine. But let's move on into the best writers of the year. I have to give it to Ram V, Chip Zdarsky, Jeff Lemire, and Jeff Johns. Those are my 4 kind of winners of the year for overall quality. Jeff Johns is always a masterclass in what he does, so you'll see his name pop up, but it's nice to see Chip and Ram really rear their heads into the public eye a little bit more than they have even already. They had fame, but now they're really making a stand, man, and we notice it. As for best artists, I'm also going to go with Jeff Lemire once again, Greg Smallwood, Dan Mora, Laura Brega, and Joelle Jones. Each one of them brings something either unique or just a master class at comic book art that just makes it so easy to keep flipping the page. So those are my favorite artists. Those are my favorite writers. These are my favorite books for 2022. It was a really good year. Pick up those trades, pick up those hardcovers, or pick up the comics. Keep reading what you love to read, and keep on hunting.